What happens when you take away every distraction? No booze, no highs, no quick escapes. You're left with one thing, yourself. And that's when the real work begins. Hey guys, and welcome to the third episode of Life Vetted. Thank you for being here and thank you for tuning in. On today's episode, I wanted to get into the conversation about abstaining from alcohol, weed, and sex. I mentioned it briefly in the last episode, but I wanted to talk to you guys about that and what I have found out throughout this journey that I've been on. To start off, I have to say that I have been sober, no weed, no alcohol for almost 4 years in total. I am still very surprised at the looks that I get from people when I tell them that I don't drink and I don't smoke weed. It's kind of sad in a way that it's more of a question as to why I don't smoke or drink than the reverse as to like, why do you smoke and drink? People like look at me weird. And especially like here in Colorado, although Colorado is like a super healthy state, like I believe it's like one of the top 5 most healthiest states in the United States, people partake in drinking and they obviously smoke weed. It's legal here. So people will look at me strangely if I go to a restaurant or I order my Sprite and lime, which is my go-to. They look at me weird. I still get surprised every time. But I decided to make that decision about 4 years ago. I had been smoking weed pretty much off and on my whole life. I think the first time that I smoked weed, if I remember correctly, it was the summer going into middle school, I believe. So it was either me going to 6th grade or going to 7th grade. I remember I was sleeping over my stepsister's house, my dad's house. And we went out with her friends and I went with her. And I remember that they were like in the kitchen and they were like rolling up a joint, and I would keep going into the kitchen to see what they were doing, but my stepsister would be like, no, go sit down in the living room. You can't come over here. So I was already like suspicious. At this point, I had already tried a cigarette. It was like a Newport menthol and I hated it. Like I almost died coughing. I never wanted to try a cigarette ever again in my life, but I had never smoked weed. So I was suspicious as to what they were doing. I knew they were doing something. And I remember telling my stepsister, I was like, being smart, okay? I was like, oh, I don't know why you're trying to hide what you're doing. I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing there. You act like I don't know, but I know. And she's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, yes, I do. I've done that before. Girl, I had never done that before, okay? She was like, are you serious? Are you being for real? I'm like, yeah, I'm not dumb. You think I'm just like some dumb kid? I know what you're doing. I've done that before. No, I hadn't. And I was pretty convincing because she was convinced that I had. And then she let me like smoke and I took like 2 hits, and I remember all I did was laugh the whole night and act like an idiot just laughing. And I remember her telling me, because of the way that I was acting, she could tell that I had never done it before. And she was like, you lied to me. I knew it. I knew that you had never done it, but by then it was too late. So by that time, middle school, I was pretty much smoking weed whenever I can get it or whenever a friend could give it to me. And it was on and off all the way till about 4 years ago. I would start and then I would stop. It would start and then I would stop To be clear, I've never had an addiction to any substances. Thankfully, that is not in my DNA. It's not in like my core. I've never been addicted to anything. I could stop smoking weed if I wanted to, but I never wanted to. I would stop brief moments and then I would start, and then I would stop and then I would start. With alcohol, I mean, I never had a problem with alcohol either, any kind of substances. I pretty much could hold my own. I remember only like twice that I threw up. One was with, oh my God, what was it? It was with Captain Morgan and like pineapple juice. Oh, that one was awful. And then the second time was going out with friends to this sushi place in like by Sunset in Miami. And they had like these bowls, these big giant bowls of like God knows what, like how many freaking types of liquor was in that. And that was the second time that I got sick. But I could hold my own. Like I'm pretty tolerant, even like with weed, with alcohol. Like I'm pretty tolerant. But I never really had an issue. You know, you drink when you're in your 20s and, you know, you go out and you have fun. But I was never a big drinker, especially as I got older. It got less and less, but I would still drink like on the weekends or socially and things like that. Now, weed, it got to the point where I was smoking weed like every single day after work. Before I had my daughter, I would be smoking weed like at work during lunchtime. Like I was like smoking weed and I could do whatever. Like it didn't like mess me up. Like I wouldn't like act a fool. Like it was like a functioning pothead. I was a functioning pothead. I can work, I can do stuff, I can drive, no problem. Like it was super normal for me. And then as I got older, I had my daughter. I kind of slowed down, but I would still smoke like after work. If I wasn't working, I would smoke. At night, I would smoke on the weekends. And it was just pretty constant. I never did any heavy drugs when I was younger. Like I've never tried cocaine. People can't understand that either. When I tell them that, they're like, but you're from Miami. And I'm like, well, you know, it's possible. I never did cocaine before. And the only other drug that I did that I guess it is kind of hardcore is, I don't know what they call it anymore. Is it Molly or is it ecstasy? I don't know. In the 90s, it was ecstasy. I don't know. Early 2000, it was Molly. I mean, I did that, but I did that like a handful of times. Like I can count how many times I've done that. My preference was always weed and then socially alcohol. But after I went through what I went through 4 years ago, I realized that I couldn't continue to do these things and expect to really get to the deep parts of me. And with sex as well. I was sexualized as a very, very young kid. So my whole life, I was aware of sex and what it is. And to me, because I was sexualized at such a young age by a family member, to me, sex is equal love for a very, very long time. And it wasn't until 4 years ago that I went through what I went through that I realized that those things were exchanges of energy. You know, you grow up and if you have a good parent, your parent will tell you, hey, you know, sex is something special. You don't just do it with anyone. All the cliche stories that you hear that people will think are corny are absolutely true about sex. It is very special. It's not something you should do with everyone. And the deeper and deeper I got into my journey, the more and more I understood why. And the more and more I became more curious about what would happen to me and my person if I quit all of those things. Until I got my heart shattered to pieces by someone that I really thought, we were going to be together forever. And at that moment, I really had no choice because I was so heartbroken that I couldn't be with anyone. Even I had the opportunity to, never really went through with it because I was so sad. And so I was forced to be by myself, still am by myself. And that really set the precedence of how my mind and my body completely changed from abstaining from sex completely. And in addition to that, I stopped drinking and I stopped smoking alcohol. In this whole spiritual thing that I've been on, you learn a lot about humans, energy, source, all of these things. I learned that everything is energy. Everything. Literally everything around us is energy. Everything is atoms and molecules vibrating at a certain frequency to create what we can touch or feel or see or smell. And through a lot of my research, I came across the topics of sex, drugs, and alcohol. I did a lot of reading and a lot of research with those mentors that I told you, Joe Dispenza, Danny Morell, Abraham Hicks, all these different mentors that all were kind of saying the same thing. And through a lot of I searched videos online, on YouTube and things of that nature, I realized that when you're surrounded by people all the time, as we are, especially coming from a Hispanic household, you're constantly surrounded by people. As a kid, your whole entire life. There's people that no matter how toxic their families are, or even their mothers or their fathers, they'll never put up boundaries with those people, because growing up in that kind of environment, especially in Hispanic environment, you're very guilted into blood is thicker than water, which that's not even the whole quote on that, by the way. We'll get into that, but you're guilted into that. And so you don't think that it's right to put boundaries up between you and your family, even though in lots of cases you probably should. So when you're surrounded by people, or you're exchanging your energy with people in different ways, whether it's having a conversation or whether it's constantly being around them, so your energy merges with them, or having sex, which is an exchange of energy. When you're doing that, you can't develop what scientists call emotional autarky. Emotional autarky is the ability to process, understand, and regulate your emotions independently. The problem is that we grow up in a society where we're never alone. We're taught that being alone is death, right? We want to fit in. We want to not sit alone at the lunch table. We want to be part of a group. It's in our DNA, right? We want to be part of something. We want to be accepted by others. And so unconsciously, we're constantly doing this dance, or this back and forth of emotional dependency, and we're bouncing our feelings off of other people looking for this validation. And so when you take yourself out of that equation, whether voluntarily or whether by force, as I feel my situation was, almost like the universe was like, girl, you have no other choice. You are going to be alone, period. So when we take ourselves out of that equation, we can stop trying to find emotional regulation through external sources. The longer that you are by yourself, the more you develop this emotional autarky, and you can actually have a more sophisticated, like, nervous system because you are by yourself. And so you start to develop this regulation that you wouldn't have if you continued to be with other people, because it's very hard, especially for like a person who's an empath or a person who really cares about other people. I'm definitely an empath, and the only way to kind of separate what you're feeling is to be by yourself, because a lot of the times when you are with other people, their energy and their emotional energy will attach itself to you, and you don't know if it's your feelings or their feelings. Or, have you ever walked into a room and you can feel the difference in energy, like there's a shift in energy? If you've ever felt that before, that is your clue right there that energy is real, and we pick up on people's energies. We pick up whether it's good or whether it's bad. And sometimes if it's constant, if there is no break between you being with people and you being by yourself, the energies start to mix, and you don't really know if it's you or if it's whatever it is that you picked up while you were with these people. And so that's something that I've learned throughout this process. And that includes sexual energy. It is so imperative to have long periods of time where the sexual energy that you have is stored and not just given out. That's something that I had to learn the hard way. Through my celibacy, I've been able to really realize that the exchange of energy in a sexual way is probably the most powerful energy that you can conjure. Back in the day, like way back in the day, I'm talking like pagans, they used to believe that through the orgasm was the way to get closer to God. And they would have like these religious ceremonies and all these things. And I mean, although I can't agree with that 100%, I understand the thought process in that. And the power and the energy that you are making when you are in that act, it is one of the most powerful energies you can have. If you have a partner that is not in the same energy space as you, whether they've had a lot of partners or whether they are angry or whatever the case may be, or any negative emotion, they are giving that to you as the same as you are giving that to them. It is an exchange of energy. So the more partners that a person has, or the more frequent partners that a person has, the longer it takes to clear your energetic field. And if you're not a person who is self-aware, or if you're not a person who practices spirituality or even meditation or any of these things, if you're not that person, you probably would take you, I don't know, 6 months, 10 months of clearing all that energy. I mean, in the same breath, if you are a person who practices spirituality and you are a person who meditates and believes and is a spiritual person, then you probably wouldn't be changing partners and having different partners, and you would understand the power of the sexual energy, and that's not something that you would do. I will give you a perfect example. I'm going to put a picture up so that you guys can see it. This girl online, her name is Bonnie Blue, okay? I am going to look up exactly because I forgot what year she was born, okay? Bonnie Blue. She is 25 years old. She was born in 1999. She is that, I think she's from the UK. She did a world-breaking record of having sexual partners in one night. She did like 1,057 or something like that. And this is an extreme example, but the more that you look into it, the more you can notice these things. She is 25 years old. Okay? Does this woman look 25 years old? 25. She looks like she's 52. She does not look 25. I will be 40. I'm going on 40. Okay? There's a difference. And the reason why I say that is because it's almost as if I can give you like a metaphor, it's a little part of you gets taken away every time you use sexual energy in a way that is not conducive to what it's meant for. Okay? And you will notice that in people that are very sexually active with a lot of different people or the wrong person. You would also see that in people who constantly are smoking weed or drinking or doing drugs. All these things that we do are like energy vampires in the worst kind of way. And if we don't protect ourselves, then it becomes really hard to get back to ourselves. And I knew that for me to have more clarity, I had to stop smoking weed. And then I had to stop drinking alcohol. Even though I didn't drink alcohol very often, I knew that that was something that I had to stop if I really wanted to be serious about connecting with Source and connecting with myself. There's a lot of people that smoke weed regularly and drink occasionally, and they still are active participators in their life. They have no problem. They're not addicted in any way. However, the truth about any substance, no matter how little you take it or how much you take it, you are taking it to cover something up. You are taking it to numb something, to forget about something. I don't care if you only drink once a week. I don't care if you drink 3 times a week, or I don't care if you smoke weed once in a while. Like, you are doing that in order to forget something, numb something, not think of something. And my friends can attest to this, I was a marijuana advocate, okay? I remember that I would tell my friends that I was going to be like that granny who was like smoking joints on the porch, on the rocking chair, and like, complete and total hippie, okay? There was nobody that loved weed more than me. But I didn't realize until my whole world blew up in my face that I was doing that always to censor some feeling, to cover it up a little bit, to make the world a little more hazy and not have to feel the feelings that were there all along. A lot of people will also say, well, I smoke weed because I have pain or arthritis or seizures or whatever. I don't buy it. This is why. I live in Colorado. I know about THC and I know about CBD. I know about both. I have had people in my family. My little cousin had brain tumors at 2 years old, and she died in her adolescence because the brain tumors wouldn't go away. So there was a lot of research done by me, by others, a lot of talking to doctors. The CBD component of marijuana is the medical component. The only difference is that it does not get you high. So if you have pain, if you have arthritis, if you have seizures, whatever the case may be, you can intake CBD without the THC, which is what gets you high. So there really is all these excuses that we tell yourself, which I did too. Hey, I did. Oh, I'm so stressed at work. I feel better. It's like my de-stress. People drink wine every night. I don't drink wine. I take a couple puffs of my bowl, and that's my wind down when I get home from work. Listen, all the excuses in the world, you name it, I've said it. You don't stop smoking weed and you don't stop drinking alcohol because you are trying to fit in, you are trying to hide something, you are trying to feel less, period. If you stopped smoking weed, drinking alcohol, and completely abstained from all those different vices, you'd have to face yourself, you'd have to face your life, you'd have to face everything. And people don't want to do that. People don't want to sit alone at the lunch table. I didn't either for a long time until I was forced. People still hang out with the same people that they knew from high school, and they still validate themselves through these people. I think it was Muhammad Ali that said that if you are the same person 10 years from now that you were 10 years ago, you've just wasted 10 years. And if you're still hanging out with the same people, doing the same things, literally, there is no growth. There can't be any growth. And people don't want to admit that to themselves. People want to tell me that, oh, you're just difficult, or you're a loner, that's why you like it. No. I enjoy the people that I enjoy, and I have friendships, and I am very thankful for the friendships that I have. But it is impossible to really have self-awareness of who you are when you are constantly surrounded by people and you are constantly exchanging these energies and bouncing off energies with all these people, whether it's through, your family, your friends, etc. True growth and true self-awareness only comes from going inside, and you can't really do that if you have this going on from all the different places. I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to really be by myself. it's the best thing that I've ever done. And now, going through this process and gaining so much clarity from just not drinking, not doing alcohol, not jumping into bed with someone else. Like, I look at people now and I can see right through their bullshit. I used to be able to do that even when I was doing all these things, but I wasn't so in touch with it. Your brain plays tricks on you when you're not really in touch with yourself. You doubt yourself sometimes. You're like, oh, I don't know. But when you take out all those things and you get this clarity that you've never had before. Probably maybe when you were like a child, you had that, because when we're born knowing who it is that we are and where it is that we came from. But as we get older, we forget, because the world influences us and our parents, and growing up, we forget to the core who we are and the energy that we came from. And so having this clarity, you look at the world around you and you can see exactly what everything is. It's an inner knowing of what's bullshit and what's not bullshit. And you create from that space. And when you create from that space, a lot of things change. I mean, people that you used to talk to every day, you don't talk to them every day. Opportunities that you thought that you wanted, they kind of just blow up and you're like, oh my God, what is going on? And it is literally you creating from a Christ consciousness, a source consciousness. And you realize that you don't need any of those things. I realized very quickly that I didn't need alcohol or I didn't need weed. I can go outside my house and look at the mountains and feel high, and I'm not high. I can look at a bird outside my window flying and feel ecstasy. I can hug my daughter and look at her in the eyes and feel love in an immense amount of it. And the longer I stayed sober, the longer I wanted to stay sober. And the longer I wanted to continue not to do any of these things, because I was like, man, if I have just figured out all these things and it's only been, 3 months, imagine how I'm going to feel in 2 years or in whatever. And so it just kind of snowballed in that way. And it just kept going and kept going and it kept going. And I have never been happier. I have never felt more comfortable. And I have never felt more certain that I can pick people that are good for me or not good for me. Now, this doesn't mean that I'll never be with someone ever again, or I might never drink again. It just means that I have developed this emotional autarky that outsiders cannot influence my feeling. And if they do, I can differentiate what's mine and what's not mine. And a lot of the times, most people that I see every single day on social media, out on the street, people that I interact with, they cannot differentiate what is even happening in their nervous system. We are in autopilot most of our lives. We think that we are in charge. We think that we are making these conscious decisions, but in reality, our subconscious is making these decisions. We can't tell, but our subconscious is making these decisions from a place where we just grew up that way, or we had trauma that made us do it. And so that's where we're working from. And the only way to detach from that is to have a shock to your system where you are now clearing up your subconscious and for the first time really meeting yourself where you are. And it's not easy, man. I'll tell you, it is not easy. It is really hard to face a lot of the ugliness of who you are or things that you've done. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of all of that goes on. And that's part of the reason why we continue to smoke weed and drink alcohol and, you know, have sex with people. We are filling a void. And we think we're making these decisions. No, we do that. I do that because I want to. I enjoy it. I like it. Every time I hear that, I feel a lot of empathy towards people when they say that. I know it's not true, but I'm not here to judge anyone, and I'm not here to tell anyone how they should live their lives. I'm not here to do any of that. Your soul doesn't enjoy them. You are protecting yourself. Your brain is a computer that its sole purpose is to keep you alive. Period. So there are a lot of beliefs that get recorded in that computer as you grow up. And it doesn't mean that the beliefs are true or not true. I'm just saying you grow up with certain beliefs, okay? If you repeat something long enough, it becomes a belief. And so that computer is keeping you alive. So to that computer, not drinking, having to face yourself, not smoking, having to sit alone in that lunch table is death. So it will keep doing whatever it is that you've been doing for however long in order to keep you alive. Are you really living? Probably not. But you're breathing, your body's moving, so to that computer, that's good enough. And I particularly was on that autopilot my whole entire existence. My whole entire existence. And I never questioned it. A lot of us never question it. A lot of us will never question it. A lot of us will die and never even have a second thought. But I am telling you that it is completely life-changing. The clarity that I've gained, I would not exchange it for anything in the world. Every time I walk out of my house, I am in awe of everything. Of a flower, of a bird, a cloud, the sky, the mountains, anything. My daughter's laugh, the leather on my steering wheel, everything. It is almost as if that when I stopped smoking and drinking, when I stopped doing all of that and I abstained from everything, it's almost as if that was the drug. Sobriety has been the drug. There is nothing better than sobriety and clarity and knowing that you're not exchanging energy with someone and giving away your sexual energy with someone for no reason, just for the hell of it. Even people that have been married for X amount of years, even that can be soul crushing. Because if your partner and you are not energetically in the same space, that could be a cycle of bad energy that never ends. And the only way to really, really come out of that is by each person individually really taking a look within themselves. I used to say my better half. I used to be like, oh yeah, my better half, he completes me or I complete him. And that's not it. True love is when you have two people that are completely whole by themselves, that are not afraid to be alone by themselves, not by themselves fucking a bunch of people and having sex with a bunch of people. No. Truly whole by themselves with self-awareness, being able to really be whole by yourself and another person the same way by themselves, really being able to be okay that you find that perfect balance. It's not 50% of a person and 50% of a person. It's a person who's 100% and 100%. And I'll admit that is very hard to find because people don't want to do that. People don't want to do the work. People would rather have a mediocre relationship than to be alone. I used to be like that. People would rather say, oh, relationships are hard. They're not always great. It is what it is, It's untrue. Completely untrue. Actually. When you have two people that have done the work, it can be a different kind of experience. But we're so used to what we've always been used to, and society has these set norms that we believe, that we just kind of go along with it. I did too. Listen, I did too. But I've really turned a corner with all these things that I have experienced. And I realized that life is supposed to be happy. You're supposed to be happy, like, all the time. Even when, I'm doing air quotes, even when bad things happen, you should still be happy. There's a choice that we make. And that came through finding my spirituality, gaining the clarity of not doing drugs, not doing alcohol, not sleeping around. Life is not supposed to be misery. And people call me crazy when I say that. They say I'm delusional, which is fine. I'll stay in my delusion completely. Everything that we've been taught, everything that we know is a lie. And I am so grateful that I went on this journey to figure it out. Because it was unacceptable to me. I couldn't take it anymore. So I had to go through all this. And I am telling you, it has been so gratifying. Anything that you want in this world, you can have. There is no dream too big. When they told us that as kids, and then we grew up and we're like, oh, that's all a lie. No, no, no. It's all true. Everything they told us as kids. Oh, your dreams can come true. You can be whatever you want to be. You can do whatever you want. Dream big. Like, all these things were true. We grew up and we forgot. That's why kids are so precious, because they're still so close to the origin of who we are and where we come from. And we taint them with these stories because it's what we've been through. But it's not what the truth really is. The thing that's in the way are our subconscious beliefs that we've created through the years, and the disconnect from ourselves. Things like sex with random people or the wrong people, alcohol, and drugs keep you separated from everything. Let's take a look at these videos real quick that I found. Maybe it could help you guys understand a little bit. It's 2 videos. I'm going to put the first one up now.
Alcohol has been used for centuries to suppress human consciousness. Alcohol lowers your higher self. It brings you deeper into your reptilian brain. Fear, anxiety, negative emotions, desires, coping mechanisms, pleasure centers, all of that stuff is activated by alcohol. It turns off the higher functioning of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, which regulates a lot of the neurochemicals that are connected to your pituitary and your pineal gland. That is the seat of your soul. The seat of your soul is within your third eye, your pineal gland. Substances like alcohol and soda calcify and turn off your third eye. This is all by design, by the way. It's like you're in a video game and there's things that weaken you and there's things that strengthen you, but the things that weaken you feel really good and taste really good. You're being tested. Your entire life is a test. Will you give in to your desires? Will you succumb to the chains that bind your flesh, or will you overcome them? The choice is yours, and the best part of it all is that you are so infinitely and eternally loved. You will be loved and accepted and forgiven no matter what.
That is such a beautiful video. I could not have explained it better myself. If you lack the faith to know that our presence here is not pointless, then that's fine. This message is not going to get through to you, which is okay. But I tell you that through my experience, the meaning that we have placed on our life here on earth is definitely one that is to level up, find ourselves. It is to remember who we are and where we came from. We are creators. We are here to create. Everything we see, we've created. Like, some people like to say that it is like a simulation. Fine. But you're here to participate in it, and you're here to find the truth and get what you want and be joyful and be happy and have everything you desire, and it's all from within. And these things, these substances, keep us from being connected. It's funny because we do it to be connected with other people, with our friends, with our coworkers, whatever. But it does the exact opposite of that. Let me play one more video for you guys.
The danger of sex is that we give it away freely without intention, and it corrupts our system. It corrupts our psychology, our sexuality, our spirituality, our relationality. We become obsessed. We become hyper-dependent, codependent with giving this part of ourselves away. The danger of sex is that it doesn't come from a healthy place. It comes from promiscuity that is fueled by unresolved and unprocessed trauma. Is that we're mixing energies with people that we don't truly align with. We lack being deliberate. We lack intentionality in our physical intimacy. We lose ourselves, and it becomes about the peak experience, not the process, not the unraveling, not the revealing of self. And this is more than just it being poetic. There is physiological interactions that take place that lock us into another person's being. The constitution of that person is represented by their emotional expression, their psychology, their physiology. It's locked into their physiology, into their nervous systems. Our nervous system intertwine and mix during that deep physical intimate practice. And if we're just giving that away freely without being intentional and deliberate, what is happening to us? What are your thoughts on this?
Such a good video. That was intense, huh? I saw that video and I was like, that's exactly what I have come to find. There has to be an intentionality behind that physical intimacy. People don't know how powerful that energy is. Unfortunately, for me, being sexualized at such a young age, it's like what he said. We are acting from a place of unresolved trauma. And so we aren't being intentional with our physical intimacy. And that is just a doorway to a lot of bad energy that eventually manifests into physical reality. And taking away all these things for, like I said, a certain amount of time, I have every hopes in the world that I will find a person that I can be intentional with in regards to physical intimacy. But when you strip that away for a period of time, you strip away the alcohol and the drugs for a period of time, you become very conscious of your existence in this life. You become very conscious of how you show up, how you exchange your energy, how you protect yourself, how you love yourself. You almost revert back to being a child. Everything amazes me. I feel happy more than not. And when I'm not happy or something happens, it's very brief. I go right back to the enchantment of my life. And it doesn't matter what my physical circumstances are. That enchantment, that happiness, that joy can no longer be taken away from me as it was my entire life. But it's something that I have been fostering inside of me for so long, that has come from the inside out. And I would not have been able to do that. And no one can do that if you are still partaking in certain things. Sex, alcohol, drugs. I hope that this video finds the people that it needs to find. And I hope that for those who are in between figuring things out, I hope that this is confirmation that what you're doing is what you should be doing. And you're on the right path. The universe knows exactly what it's doing. And if we let go a little bit and stop trying to control everything, all the blessings start to pour in. But you have to be able to connect to yourself. And you can't do that if you're still scared about sitting at that lunch table by yourself. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When you're ready, the lessons will find you. This is Life Vetted. Until next time.